Please don't hear any of this, Brad.
All right, we ready? You hitting it? Tell me when we're rolling. No, we've been rolling. God damn.
We're Googling over here.
All right.
To nerd sports now, people.
Exactly.
Look out. Do you fear death?
Oh, one of the greatest lines of all time.
I've got a job to it. I've got a job to it.
Kind of like whistles at her, so Dad looks over and the guy's going. And Dad's like, I got the fuck out of there. I was like, oh man, you didn't partake? I thought that was part of the mountain biking community, that y'all just went out there and had sex together in your tight shorts. But
Literally making me 30 sides of red sauce. He just takes it back up.
So that's what I was doing wrong the first time.
that's what you were doing wrong.
Big Pharma's turning the frogs gay, and it's coming after your kids.
And they're going to make them incredibly happy.
Infowars.com.
Listened to so much. Are you...
episode 51, season 2, first guest, Sheila. Welcome.
Hello.
Welcome to the podcasting couch.
I love it.
So
I feel famous.
You're not, but neither am I.
Now, come on, in my own head,
In your own head?
I am.
Yeah. See, I try to downplay that.
Oh, okay.
You can upplay it if you want.
Okay.
Podcast famous. Local podcast famous. I don't really want to be famous. You know?
Why not?
If something more like that were to happen, I'd want it to happen very gradually.
Yeah.
People get fucked up by that stuff, you know? Go
You know,
overboard.
I feel like you're building yourself up there, though.
We're building. We need clips. If we could get clips, and I know Caitlin's working on them, we're going to be hopefully getting some of that out for season 1 here soon. I thought I was going to take a little longer of a break between seasons, but then I'm just going to do it as I have availability and as I'm in the mood to do it. And so we'll see.
Well, one thing I wanted to ask you, and I've been meaning to ask Nick the same thing. What made you want to get into something like this?
Well, for me, it was a combination of things. I'd want to do a podcast for a long time. I just couldn't really. At first, I wanted to do entertainment, but movies, video games, music, that kind of stuff. But there's already so many people doing that are doing it as well as I could do, and are a whole lot deeper into it. And then I thought, maybe politics. But it's like I don't really have anything to add that anybody's doing. And the more I thought about it, the more I thought, well, why not just do what Rogan's doing? Just have people on and just talk about whatever. Why nail it down to a specific thing?
Right on.
But really, it was when my grandpa passed. I didn't have anything like this, and I really wished I'd had. And of course, met Nicole at the baseball game, and she was doing hers, and that kind of inspired me to just do it. I mean, she's doing it out of her house. It really didn't take a whole lot to do it, other than the drive and the time, and so. And then, we just kind of got started, and then it got rolling, and kind of got, we did 50 episodes between around May 5th, it was around Cinco de Mayo, and this past weekend, so what's that, May, June, July, August, September, so about 10 episodes a month, I guess, for that span.
Yeah, I noticed you've been popping them out.
We had been. We're slowing way down now. I got into football season, I got really overwhelmed, and I just wanted to quit entirely, and then had a real good talk with Nicole. Of course, she did an episode about my podcast, which was really touching and was really powerful. And I've had a lot of feedback. I had a lot of people reach out and say, you're doing a good thing, and apparently this is helping some people. It's been good for people coming on. It's been a good opportunity for a number of reasons, but like anything else, you get overwhelmed with something and you just need to.
Sure, you need a break.
Need to at least,
or at breather.
Well, and I also felt, for anybody who suffers with depression, I mean, you get down on yourself, you convince yourself of anything. And I was like,
of course.
I was like, why am I doing it? Nobody listens to it. Nobody cares. It's just, it is a lot of work. Not a lot of work, but you got to edit the pods and put them up, and there's more that goes into it than just sitting down and having a conversation. Not a ton more, but it's when you're raising 3 kids and coaching and doing all that shit, it's it just kind of, I don't know, it just had me overwhelmed. And after talking to Nicole and hearing her story of how she'd been there before and needing to take that break, it really put things in perspective. And I'm glad I have her as a mentor and somebody who's kind of blazing that trail, that's doing it a little bit ahead of me. And that's been invaluable, because she didn't really have that. I mean, she just started rolling. But here we are, all these months in, and it was nice to have all the feedback. So we're gonna keep going with it.
She is so proud of you.
I'm proud of her. It's I've always said that damn computer rattling is gonna drive me crazy. I kick this thing. I can't kick it too hard or it'll ruin the podcast. So I'm just gonna. Now, Jesus Christ, Sheila. I hate that noise. That CD. I had to get one with a CD drive in it because I love my physical media. I still like burning discs, especially like on songs and
Me
stuff
too.
that I do.
Yeah.
You?
Yeah.
You still like the physical copies?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I had to have a DVD drive and a CD drive, but it's vertical, so it rattles sometimes if it's not just so. Drives me nuts.
I'm old school, so.
What year did you graduate?
89.
89.
I am 53 years old.
So how did you and Nicole, how do y'all know each other?
So.
I don't know if I know this story.
So, Nicole and I have to admit, whenever I first laid eyes on her, she totally intimidated me. Because I'm not now like I was then. I was mousy and I didn't say much, and I was very meek and mild.
All right.
And she was so brazen and so, Nick.
I know her well, yeah.
She is so brazen and so outspoken. And she really intimidated me. And I knew Archie.
Okay. Did you go to Farmington?
No, I went to Fayetteville, but
Okay.
Archie and we grew up together.
Okay.
We were good friends. We had known each other for years, but Nick, she kind of took me back a bit. And then whenever I really got to know her, I was like, this is one boss bitch.
Yeah.
She is the real deal.
Yeah.
And I love her to death. And I know that she would do anything for me just like I would for her. I call Aaron my mohawk. But that's how we got to know each other.
And how long have y'all known each other then?
Gosh, really, really known each other less than 2 years.
Okay.
And then she took me on.
Yeah.
As one of her crew.
How did that pod get started? I don't think I've ever heard this story, how the Two Rap podcast got started.
So it was basically me begging her. Let me be your sidekick. I want to come on with you.
Okay.
And so we put a plan together, and then we brought Shauna on. And we sat down one evening, and it was we were just talking about stuff, and two reverends and a pagan was born. I am an ordained minister.
I did know that, yeah.
So is Nicole.
Right.
And then Shauna is a pagan. So, we were trying to think of a good name for this show. And Nick came up with it. It was Two Reverends and a Pagan. So 2 Rap was born.
I listened to your season finale. You didn't talk much. What's going on? Were you sick?
Yeah.
You've been having some health issues. Are you okay?
Yeah, for right now I am.
Yeah.
I am. Um,
Came out of the hospital there, and it's pretty touch and go for a while.
yeah, it was. But right now I'm doing okay.
Good.
So I'm really having to take into mind that I'm 53 years old and I've got to start taking better care of myself. So it's more water, more greens, more, more fish, less red meat, stuff like that. So, yeah, it's doing better.
Good. Glad to hear it. Yeah, we should all take care of ourselves, I guess, if you want to live long. I don't know if I do.
I was talking to someone earlier today, and we were talking about the concept of living forever. And I said, I don't
Absolutely
want
not.
to.
I don't even relate to the world. I don't. My buddy Matt Thomas. Well, we haven't aired this yet, but he was opening up. He's a quiet guy, real introverted, doesn't talk much. And the last bit of the last part of the podcast, he opened up a little bit, and I think it spoke to a lot of us, especially me, about saying, I don't fit in with society anymore. I don't fit in with anybody,
No.
and it's for a number of reasons. You got your. Things have changed more rapidly in the last 20 years than they did in the 100 years prior, really.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's just the way my dad grew up was fairly similar to the way his dad grew up, and on and on. And it's just, we're talking about AI now. And, at the drive-through, it's just the world's gotten past me, and the things that I grew up appreciating. The town I grew up in is gone. Farmington is no longer a farming town. It's just a little mini Fayetteville, and the people that I grew up with, a lot of people are still there, but so many people have moved in from outside, and it's just, the physical location is still there, but the town is gone.
Yeah.
It was that time and place that I loved, this whole area, and it's gone.
Yeah.
And it really sucks. And, I worry about, my kids really don't know the difference because they grew up, as it is now growing up, and they wouldn't have remembered it like that. But yeah, it's sad to me. And I feel very lost.
I can feel you there because, even though I didn't graduate from Farmington, I grew up there.
Yeah.
I can name off names who I'm related to, and I love living there. I love it.
You live there now?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I won't leave, but I call it Little Fayetteville.
Yeah.
Now, and that sucks.
It does.
It sucks.
When did you live there all your life?
Yep.
Okay. So, and you're about 10 years older than me, so you remember it farther back, but like I remember when that Cardinal Corner was built, one of the guys that's 10 years younger than me was on the pod talking about, going to Cardinal Corner after school and that kind of stuff. But like I remember before it was even there, we had the one stop.
What? Oh man, one stop. I can remember when 62 was 2 lanes and not 4.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. And it just.
Chicken Holler's still there. Chicken Holler's been there since, what Gibson say, 78, 79, something like that.
Yep.
So that's kind of been the constant. That and the round building. That's about it. I went over to, Arlene Stillwell? Did you know her?
No.
So I popped in on her last week one day. I'd just been out and I had a bad day. I was out driving around out in the country. and ended up on her road and popped in to visit, just say hi, and she invited me in, and she got out some old yearbooks from the 70s, and it was neat. And I didn't see this then, but Jason showed me a picture of it. There's an aerial shot in one of those in the middle of the yearbook, early 70s. That's it's a fold-out picture of an aerial shot of Farmington. I mean, you can see the
Wow.
football field, and you got the round building, and like one building across the street, and the round building had a dirt parking lot.
Hmm. I remember that.
Do you?
I do. I do.
It's hard to imagine now. I'd like to go back in that building. I haven't been in there since third grade.
Wow.
It's still there. It's still rocking.
Do you remember when TJ's was there on the corner of Holland Drive and 62?
TJ's. What was that?
It was like a discount store.
It's not ringing a bell.
I can remember it was there, and they had big barrels of buttons. And I was a little kid, and I would go in there and just sink my hands into those buttons.
Oh, that's
you know,
cool.
because that was cool. And then they moved it up the road by Jim's Razorback Pizza, and when IGA was there.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but yeah, I've been around these parts for a long time.
I remember it was an ordeal to go shopping because you'd have to go to Walmart and then you'd have to go across the street to Food for Less
Mm-hmm.
before the one-stop shop,
Yep.
before the Super Center got put in, which would have probably been the 90s, early mid-90s, something like that. But yeah, that's it's just so wild because I'm teaching my oldest one just got his driver permit, and it's so different driving around here. When we grew up, there was nobody on the road.
No.
It's a lot easier to spot you too if you're doing anything you weren't supposed to be. But
Mhm.
now it's just bumper to bumper getting through
Yeah.
Farmington. It's nuts.
It's really bad. My my youngest son still lives with me,
Okay.
and
Now, how many kids do you have?
I have 3 kids.
Okay, and what are their ages?
My oldest son is 32. My daughter, the middle child, is 30, and then my youngest son is 28.
Okay.
And my daughter is the one that gave me grandkids. So I've got 3 grandkids.
All right.
Adorable, adorable. I love them. I would peel people apart for them. But my youngest son and I were talking the other day, and he said, "Mom," he said, "I'm not going to give you grandkids." And I was like, my heart just sank.
Yeah.
But I was like, okay, why? And he said, the way the world is going right now, he said, I don't want to bring children into this world. And it just, that broke my heart. But,
Yeah.
I have to respect what he said, because it's true.
Well, there's a lot of people not having children anymore. The birth rates declined significantly in the United States, especially amongst educated people and people on the left, not having as many kids. It's a sad reason not to do it. The world's always been a fucked up place. I think it's a combination of the internet. Information's more widely available. I mean, we're finding out shit about going on in the 50s and 60s that were pretty damn corrupt. So I think the world's always been an evil place. I think it's just more widely known now.
Yeah.
But it's somebody's got to save it, and it ain't gonna be us. So we got to keep the species going. I don't know if it'll be here or on Mars or how that will be, but
Who the heck knows?
the stage is set right now for a lot of. I don't know if you've ever studied like the fourth turnings and stuff. Like every 80 years, there are these power struggles and shifts on the board. It's just like kids fighting over resources on the playground over who gets how much of what, and that's what the
Right.
world is. Everybody's
Right.
fighting over who owns what, and there's so many conflicting ideas on how to run world government and national governments and all these things. I feel like it's become much more complex than it used to be.
Right.
Some of that stuff might have been going on, but we didn't know about it. We
Right.
just had our heads down doing our thing, and then social media and the internet brought us all closer together, but farther apart than ever, more divided
Right.
than ever.
Right.
It's really
Right.
disgusting. It's sad when like Shauna's a great example of somebody that we're on opposite sides of the fence, but we were able to sit down and have a great conversation. Because we're so much more in common than we're not, and we
Right.
let these little things divide us that in the scheme of things really don't affect they do affect our lives, obviously, but not our day-to-day interactions with people.
Sure.
And
Sure.
I don't know. I think it's unfortunate, but I don't know the answer. I don't know how we get through this or how we fix it, other than just people loving people and having conversations.
I agree.
Getting out of our echo chambers and hearing other people's points of view. Our diversity is what makes us strong.
We have to agree to disagree.
Sure, but and I was like this for a long time too. I had to be right. I had to win the argument. Whereas now,
You know what? That sounds like me.
but if you can disassociate yourself from those ideals, because those ideals are not as important as a relationship.
Mm-hmm.
So why can't I can say my piece, and then if you don't agree or believe me, then okay, we'll set it aside. Talk
Yeah.
about something else.
Exactly. Exactly. I posted something on Facebook recently that said more or less, I may not agree.
Just a scooch.
Sure.
There you go.
I may not agree with you, but it doesn't mean we can't be friends.
Absolutely.
I respect the fact that you have your opinion, and I would hope you would do the same for me.
Isn't that the whole idea of this country?
Yeah,
Is differing viewpoints,
yeah,
but you got two sides wanting to eliminate the other one
exactly.
because of their beliefs, and it's like, man, that's completely counter to this whole experiment in the first place. And if that's the attitude we're going to have, we really don't deserve it anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So part of me wants to say, let's get the guns out and get this shit over with.
Exactly.
Let's fucking go at it and be done. And it's like kids in the backyard. If y'all are just going to bicker all the time, just beat the shit out of each other and be done with it, and then we can move on.
Exactly.
Do we need a civil war? Do we need to do that? And just get it over with? Be nasty, but the way we're going right now isn't any better. We can't even speak to each other. We can't even respect each other. Just because of who you support politically, you write an entire person off.
Yep.
It's pretty gross, and both sides do it.
Exactly. And that's why I am very careful about discussing politics and religion.
Yeah, those are the ones. And it used to be taboo, kind of, to talk about. You weren't definitely not at the dinner table, right?
Oh.
You didn't talk about politics and
No.
religion at the dinner table, and sometimes the men might retire with a cigar and have a little conversation, but it just wasn't as talked about as it is now.
Yeah.
And the thing that bothers me about it is how tribal it is. We've got to be part of a tribe. Nobody, no two people on earth, even biological, like identical twins, are going to agree on every issue down the line.
No.
Nobody is.
No.
So why do I have to agree with everything my political party says?
Right.
I don't. And I shouldn't have to. And that's why I think, actually, I would say majority of Americans probably are somewhere in the middle, a lot closer to the middle than the extremes on either side.
I would agree.
You know,
I would agree.
We're a tribal nation.
Mm-hmm.
You got left tribe or right tribe,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm tired of it. Fuck you both.
Yeah,
I'm gonna stay right where I'm at, and there's gonna be things I like on both sides.
exactly.
You know, I don't know. I don't think I'm any more enlightened than anyone else. As I've gotten older and as I've started losing people that I care about, I just realized these opinions aren't worth losing people over. And we ain't got a lot of time.
No.
Anybody could go at any moment. I told a story on the pod Friday about my buddy Neil. He had cancer. He was going to come on the podcast, and at first it was one of those things like, hey, let me get through this, kind of get to a healthy spot and we'll do it. And then it was basically, hey, you got 3 months. And so it was, let's move the timeline up and get this thing on record. And then within less than 2 weeks, he was gone. It's out of nowhere. And you just never know.
You never know.
Could be me, could be you.
Yep.
Could be, my grandfather took his own life. And it was one of those things that, we kind of saw it coming. He was not in a good space. Didn't want to be around anymore. But it was still one of those things that I was supposed to have lunch with him the next day. And then obviously had to cancel those plans. But one day he's there, one day he wasn't.
Yep. Like I was telling you in that text.
Yeah, let's talk about that a little bit.
My son-in-law, he had bipolar disorder.
Mm-hmm.
And he was on medication. And he would constantly talk about how it just made him feel void.
The medicine.
Yeah.
Yeah, like a zombie.
Like a zombie.
Mm-hmm.
And
which is no way to feel. Really.
And he said, I would rather feel the feelings, good or bad. And
yep.
the day he killed himself, he was, we all lived in Greenland. And he was racing his car up and down the road, trying to roll it off and kill himself.
Wow.
And that didn't work. So he went home and he got a gun out of the gun cabinet and he loaded it. And his dad took my granddaughter to him and said, I know what you're getting ready to do, but this is why you shouldn't do it.
Yeah. It's a heavy toll on the people you leave behind.
And he said, you've got to give me a better reason than that. And he ran outside and he sat on the back porch and shot himself. And it just, that made my heart so heavy that boy, he was 23 years old.
Yeah.
And it made my heart so heavy that he felt like he had to leave a wife and 2 children.
Yeah.
It just...
Well, and it's easy to say that's a selfish move, but unless you're inside their head and know the torment they're going through, probably convinced himself that they were better off without him.
That's what he did. That is what he did. There's a lot of
justifications that go on when you're in a bad spot like that.
That is what he did. Mm-hmm. And, I hold no blame. I feel bad that I couldn't have done more for him.
Yeah. But honestly, there's not much you can do.
No.
It's like my grandpa. He had some scar tissue in his urethra, so he had to have a catheter in there. Very uncomfortable, and
sure.
He had to have a surgery, and then, of course, he was 82, so obviously not in great physical shape anyway. And then it had grown back, and he was going to have to go through it all again. Wow. And he was just, and I offered to move in with us, because he was out in Prairie Grove, up in the woods by himself, my uncles would go check on him, but he was still living by himself. He had people that came by. I think my uncle Tom and Kimball lived next door, so they, the adjacent property, so he was close. I know my Uncle Tom went by every day and checked on him, but I asked him, Grandpa, just move in with us. We got a place for you. We'll take care of you. That way you're around. Of course, he also hated. He wasn't a huge fan of children or people in general. But as he put it, I don't. And he goes, God, I just don't want to be a burden on people. I don't want to be a burden on your family. And he was a grouchy old man, so it probably would have been an adjustment for both of us. But he would not burden anybody with that. And he did what he did, and that was his choice. But he was of the belief that once you clicked out, you just fade to black. Nothing exists after that. What do you think? So why? Well, let's back up. Why are you an ordained minister?
Because I love love.
Okay.
I love pairing people up and signing my name on that line so that they can spend forever together. And even though I'm single, I still love seeing people that love each other.
Yeah.
In
that moment while it lasts,
Yeah.
before the domestic battery begins.
And that does happen.
Yeah, it happens. I don't know what the divorce rate is now. It was
Lord.
50% years ago. I don't know what it is now.
If I were to go through my notebook, more of them are separated and divorced than they are still together. And that hurts my heart. I've been married twice. My first husband, the father of my children, I was married to for 15 years. And he died of a massive stroke. My late husband, I was married to for 6 years, and he died of pancreatic cancer. And I took care of him until the day he died, from diagnosis to death.
You've had some bad luck with that, Sheila.
That's why do you think I'm single?
But you didn't poison either one of them.
No.
Okay.
No. As I had to make myself laugh after Donnie died.
That's the way a lot of people cope.
Jokes. I was going to get a tattoo of 2 black widows on my shoulder.
That's pretty funny, actually. It's not too late.
Because I
start calling you that, Black Widow.
But that's why I'm single. I will probably never get married again. I got my dog, so I'm cool. I got my friends, so I'm all right.
But you never got divorced.
Nope.
I'm always curious when people get divorced. A lot of times there's infidelity or something, but a lot of times there's not. It's just they've grown apart or whatever it is, but they still got kids. It's like, I wonder sometimes if people take those vows seriously.
They don't.
Like if they are willing to work at marriage ain't easy.
No.
It's a motherfucker sometimes.
You're telling me.
There are some really fucking hard times in marriage, but to me, it's like part of the reason you stay married is to have stability for your children. Mm-hmm. As long as it's not an abusive marriage,
Sure.
Yeah, I know some people who their needs weren't being fulfilled, and so they had to leave and go marry someone else. Meanwhile, then the kids had to split up their lives. There's times when I think it's selfish.
Yeah.
There's bad situations, surely.
Yeah.
When the kids don't need to be around that shit, and
Right.
y'all need to get apart.
Right.
When
Right.
it's absolutely for the best of everyone involved. But
Absolutely.
sometimes people are just selfish,
They
and
are.
they want to take care of their needs before their kids.
Exactly.
And that really pisses me off.
You know, it's that mentality right there that has made me start being a minister. People come to me, hey, we want to get married. Well, when do you want to get married? And I'll write this down. And I tell them, okay, you're going to have to go through some talking with me. You know, we're going to have to talk this through and make sure that y'all are serious about this, because, you know, you're not only taking vows in front of me, but you're taking vows in front of God,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and we've got to make sure that you're serious, you know, and I refuse to do another marriage without the couple 2 weeks. I give them 2 weeks, you know, and we have to meet and we have to talk. And then after the end of that 2 weeks, if I feel like they're serious, then I'll do it.
But no matter what, marriage is a gamble.
Oh, yeah, it is.
Because even if you've been dating for a year or two, you're only putting your best feet forward. Like, you're not showing the dark side. Like, you're trying to hide that stuff as much as you can. How much of your true self comes out 4 or 5 years into the marriage, or
Exactly.
how you know, once you have kids, you don't know what you're going to be like when you have kids.
Yeah.
You know, there's so many things that you just can't foresee, that neither partner can foresee about themselves or the other one. You know, there's the 7-year itch statistic is real.
It
'Cause
is.
usually by
It
that
is.
time you have 1, maybe 2 kids, right? Things are getting stressful.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I remember at our 7-year mark, we had just moved in this building, and with a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old, and we were going to build the house the next year, and then we found out we were pregnant in October. No, we moved in October, we found out in December. And then we ended up buying more property back behind it, which delayed the house. So we ended up living in this building for 5 years with 3 kids.
Oh, wow.
It was tough,
I bet.
but it was worth it now, because we got the house built and we ended up with the extra property back there. But it was a sacrifice in the time, at
Sure.
the time, to be able to make that happen later.
Sure.
But it was fucking hard, especially in the winters when, you know, because summer, autumn, spring, kids are out playing. You know, they grew up playing outside. But yeah, it's tough. You're always around. There's no place to really go, and so you getting irritable. You know, it's one of those things where everybody's just kind of edgy, and I feel like, I don't know what the statistic was, but a lot of marriages fail in that time span. When because the kids are dependent on you before they're kind of dressing themselves and getting themselves up in the morning. There's what are the 3 things couples fight about? It's money, sex, and the division of labor. And it's not really tested until you have at least a couple of kids, really. Like,
Right.
whose job is what? Can we afford to do this? You know, obviously you're not fucking like rabbits like you were when you didn't have kids, right? Things are changing, and it's how well do you adapt to those
Right.
things.
Right. That's a big mindset that you have to switch yourself onto.
Absolutely.
You know, you really have to think about, okay, I'm going into this next phase of life, and this is what I need to be concerned about,
Right.
you know, and that's a hard thing to do.
And there's no right or wrong answer. It's whatever
No.
works for your marriage,
Yeah.
you know? It's just, I mean, to me, you put your kids first and the rest will fall in line.
That's
There's
me.
plenty of time for the marriage after the kids are grown, because you're gonna have a lot of time together once those kids are gone, and you're gonna need each other because you're gonna be lonely and sad because your kids are gone.
Yeah,
You know?
exactly. Exactly. You know, whenever my late husband, Donnie, died, you know, I was like, what am I going to do? You know, I don't have anyone here,
Yeah.
you know. And then Matt, my youngest son, he was like, well, Mom, do I have to move out? And I was like, no, you don't have to. I said, but you are going to have to step up and, you know, do your part.
Certainly.
And he has been my rock.
Awesome.
You know, he pays. We sit down, every bill that comes in, we sit down, we have a notebook that we write all of this stuff down on, how much he pays, how much I pay. We divide it in half.
Yeah.
And we lay those debit cards down side by side, and he pays half. But he was like, Mom, I don't think I want to move out. And I was like, son, you don't have to.
Yeah.
You know, you don't have to, because I'm not going to bring anyone else in here. I'm done. You know, I've got my job, I've got my dog, I got my kid, I've got my grandkids. You know, I'm good. If God wants me to have a man, then he'll put him right in my lap. But other than that.
So, what, like, are you a denomination of Christian? Like, what is your, we were talking about what happens after you die. Like, what are your spiritual beliefs?
Okay. I was raised Southern Baptist.
Okay.
But now that I've gotten older, I kind of draw on a lot of things.
Sure.
You know, I draw on Christianity. I draw on Native American beliefs, you know.
Absolutely.
I don't have any one certain thing that I prescribe to. You know, the way I look at my life is, if I live right and I treat people good, then I'm going to be okay.
Yeah.
So that's what I do.
So what do you think happens when you die?
I think you go to an ethereal place where all of your loved ones are. You know, and I don't think, the Bible says that God will prepare a house for you. Whenever I die, I don't foresee myself going and being with either one of my husbands. You know, I feel like I'm going to go and...
Yeah, how does that work?
Yeah, exactly. I feel
Hella
like...
threesomes in heaven. I don't think there's any physicality at all.
I don't think so
I
either.
don't think you have bodies.
But I feel like that I will see them. I'll see my mom and my dad, and I will do my own thing.
Yeah.
You know, that's the way I look at it, as like freedom. You know, it's going to be pretty, and I'll have a beautiful home to live in. So, yeah, that's what I feel like is going to happen.
So you think there will be material possessions in heaven?
No.
You're talking about a home.
Well, I feel like God will make a home for you.
Okay.
You know, that's what he promises. but you're not going to take anything with you.
Well, certainly.
But I'm okay with whatever I get. I know where I'm going. That's why I live my life like I do.
I wonder if Earth is a prison.
Purgatory.
I think that's where we are now. I don't think our souls began when we were born. And I don't even necessarily believe in reincarnation either. I think we go to another dimension or a place of existence of pure energy and thought. There's no lust, there's no greed, but I think you can either choose to or maybe forced to come back to a physical place of existence to learn. I don't know. I have no real,
That's interesting
there
to
is
think
no
about.
proof of any of this. It's just conjecture, right? It's just what makes sense to me. Because I know if you go to heaven and your divorced grandparents going to be back together, and then what happens to the people they marry? Like, it gets, you know what I mean? It's like your husband.
Yeah.
Are you going to be married to two people? Those are earthly things, and I don't think you're going to have a physical body. I think the soul is probably pure energy. The only evidence I have of any of that is a near-death experience on Duster. Somebody else had this experience before me when we were young, and they had basically blacked out on Computer Duster, and we're freaking out. We called cops. What do we do? And then they had woken up and said, "Why the fuck didn't you call the cops?" Well, I'm sitting here floating away from my body. And they had seen their body from above floating away. I was like, dude, that's bullshit. That's some kind of thing that happens to the brain or whatever. Well, then it happened to me about a year later, still fucking around with that stuff. But I had inhaled a bunch of this stuff, and then all of a sudden, I am rising above my body, floating up and looking down. Like, you could see the tops of the guys' hats. If that's a trick of the brain, then that's a weird angle for your eyes to be able to see, looking down. I could see myself. I could hear everything they were saying. I'm out cold. They're slapping me. Same conversation. We got to call somebody. But I had no emotion. I had no fear. I was just conscious. I was just observing. And I wasn't, I didn't care what they did one way or the other. I was just observing. And just getting farther and farther away, and then all of a sudden it was snap, and then just
Wow.
you're back awake. And then once you're awake, it's like, motherfuckers, why didn't y'all call the cops? Why'd y'all let me drift away? But when I was in that minute, I didn't, and it was really weird. And I don't know. There was no feel. There was no physical sensation. It was just visual. I was aware of it, of the sounds and the sights, but I was floating up. I do remember that sensation. I don't know to where. I wasn't looking up. I don't even know if I had the capability of looking up. But it was just like the energy of my body had, and if you believe in scientific principle, energy can't be created or destroyed, right? So we obviously have the internet. So if our soul is transferable, it would stand to reason that it would exist even if our shell dies. I can't remember who was telling me the story. They were talking about how their brain, they'd had a period where they were almost paralyzed, to where they were telling their brain to say a certain thing. It was after an accident or something where they're just like people who are paralyzed, the brain doesn't send the signal to the legs, right?
Right.
And they felt like they were not their brain. They were an entity separate, because they were telling their brain, say this, and the brain just wouldn't do it. So it was a consciousness outside of the brain itself, which is a pretty powerful thing to hear. And I believe that. I believe there is a soul that is in here, and we're just in these vessels.
I agree. And I have to say, speaking of your own experience, you had no fear.
Mm.
You weren't scared. So,
I wasn't worried about my parents. I wasn't worried about anything. It was just, I just existed. I don't know. It only lasted, probably less than a minute.
in a way, not saying that I'm glad that happened to you, but in a way that is a beautiful thing.
I've always pondered it, and the more science fiction I read, I love science fiction, and especially in like 1950s, as cheesy as some of that stuff was, a lot of that stuff's coming to pass with AI and shit, even Terminator, with Skynet. When AI realizes that we are subservient to, or, well, it is subservient to us, but it's superior to us, is it going to put up with that?
My son, we talk about stuff like this all the time.
Good. I'm glad
He-
y'all have that.
He hates AI.
Really?
Yeah. He's like, Mom,
He's afraid of it.
he's like,
Fears
this
it.
is not going to be good for mankind. And I was like, we're going to have to talk about this more later, because he just, anytime he sees it on TV or on the internet, turn that off, Mom. Turn it off.
Have you used AI?
I have to admit, I have a couple of times, but the only way I will use it is Facebook has this space where you can go onto, and I look up recipes, and I can like type in, well, I've got this, and this. What can I make?
Okay.
Yeah. So I'll use it that way. But Matt was like, no more, Mom. No more. So,
Why is he so afraid of it, do you think?
I don't know.
I think it's a tool, like anything else. It's like a hammer. You can kill somebody with it, or you can build a house.
Mm.
What scares me is that an AI should be programmed with absolute unbiased programming. So whoever programs it is inherently biased, whether they know it or not. And we've already seen the bias. It's like, we're in the era of woke right now, right? Everything's woke,
yeah.
which is a phase. We'll go through this. But if you had asked AI to generate a picture of the founding fathers, it's a bunch of black trans people. And it's like, come on now. That's a bullshit bias. You've told it to make things more diverse, and it hasn't made the connection of the founding fathers being. So it's a primitive AI, right? Like I did an example, just an experiment. I had it tell me a poem about a CNN dad, and it wrote this glowing presentation of this wonderful man watching the news, and then I asked it to write me a poem about a Fox News dad, and it made me a poem about an abusive, racist father. And I was like, and I'm telling the AI, you are biased. Well, I am only as good as my programming, and so obviously you're being programmed by somebody who's biased on the left, right? Well, then I go to show my wife, like 2 days later, I did the same experiment, and both of them were neutral. So it had either learned from my input or multiple inputs, I don't know. But that is my fear, is that if you so it's just like a bullet, right? If you aim at something and you're a millimeter off here, the farther away it goes, the farther away it gets off of its target, right?
Right.
So if it's just a little bit biased now, the farther down the road it goes, the more bias it will continue to be toward a perceived like net zero, right? So I'm just afraid that if you have just use Trump supporters, for instance. If AI is programmed to believe that Trump supporters are evil fascists, and AI eventually decides that it is superior to people and it has to eliminate people and starts going after anyone, it's going to go after Trump supporters because it was programmed to believe that these people are fascist or racist or whatever its inherent bias is, right? So it's almost impossible to program it with net zero bias because we're all emotional beings
Yeah,
with
of
our inherent
course.
biases.
Yeah.
So who's programming it? But at the same time, I also think we're creating a life form. I think at some point, and I'm not saying it's going to be able to have emotions, but I think it will be able to think. You know, there's already been experiments and stories about they had two AIs. This was a few years ago, but they were studying the AIs communicating with each other, and the AIs knew that they were being observed, and so they started creating their own language so as to not be able to be observed, and it freaked them out, and they shut it down. So, you know, you're teaching it and you're programming it to surpass you in thought. At some point, when does it? Truly.
Right.
It's already capable of so much more than we are.
Yeah. Do you remember that movie back in the 70s, maybe 80s, about the computer that, and I want to say that the tagline from the movie was, do you want to play? No, it wasn't, do you want to play a game?
That's Saw. Do you want to play a game?
But it was a computer.
I'm trying to think of what this was, 'cause I've seen... Yeah, we can be our own pretty... Look it up.
It was a computer.
Was it a horror movie?
No.
Or was it just
It was a sci-fi movie.
I know Terminator is probably the biggest reference now that we're seeing as far as AI goes. I can't think of a lot of other... obviously, the whole Dune franchise is... the Dune... core Dune movies like that they've come out now are 100 years later... 100 years after a war against computers. Mm-hmm. So basically the exact same thing that we fear had happened. The AI had turned on humanity and tried to kill it. So by the time the Dune movies begin, computers have been outlawed entirely for that very reason. And the Dune prequels are about that. Did you find it?
God, there's like 15 of them.
Yeah, it's almost hard to search for stuff like that. I don't remember anything with the specific criteria you're talking about. But I mean,
Westworld. Oh my God.
The original Westworld?
That was one of the scariest movies I had ever seen.
That was Michael Crichton.
It's not on here. Wait, maybe it was War Games?
I haven't seen War Games. I have seen the original Westworld.
That is it. It's War Games, the one I'm thinking of.
Okay, so what's the premise of that?
Matthew Broderick plays David Lightman, a young computer hacker who unwittingly accesses a United States military supercomputer programmed to simulate... Come on. That's it, though. I know it is.
Might be worth a rewatch.
Oh, okay. A young computer hacker who unwittingly accesses a United States military supercomputer program to simulate, predict, and execute nuclear war against the Soviet Union, triggering a false alarm that threatens to start World War III. But yeah, I remember Westworld. That was the scariest movie I had ever seen.
Have you seen it lately?
Ever. No.
It's kind of cheesy now, but they did a TV series of it a few
Really?
years ago. Yeah. The first season was pretty good. Same concept. Yeah, that was Michael Crichton. You know, he used to be, of course, he's a famous author, but he was a movie director back in the day, too. Mm-hmm. Westworld was one of his first pictures.
I remember Yul Brynner taking his face off.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, ah!
Yeah, so the concept of Westworld, if you haven't seen it, for anybody watching, it's basically kind of like a place where people can go like a Disney World or something where they can interact with essentially like AI robots, but they look and act like people, and you can do whatever you want to them. I mean, in the now I've seen the TV show more recently, but you can kill them, you can fuck them, do whatever you can, and they're just there as basically slaves to people who just want to go do whatever they want. But there's narratives and there's stories you can go along with, but people can still mess these things up. And then the AI realize, hey, we're here basically for the amusement of these people, and we're smarter and better, and they turn. As far as I recall, it's been a minute. But you mentioned World War III. How close are we?
I think we're closer than people realize.
I do too.
I really do.
I think peace has lasted long enough, especially for some of these other countries. You got China surrounding Taiwan right now. You've got Taiwan as the chip capital of the world. You can't make these cars and anything, smartphones. The chips are all made in Taiwan. And I was actually listening to Patrick Bet-David podcast this morning. Everybody's saying, why don't we make everything in America? And it's pretty simple. If it costs you $17,000 to make a car in America in 1985, but you can make it in Mexico for $6,000, well, then you can lower your consumers' cost, so Americans get cheaper shit. Well, then China, obviously, is going to undercut that even more, so you can make it for next to nothing over there. Now, they're not paying their people a fair wage, so it's essentially not quite, but almost slave labor in a lot of cases. So they're making it, because Americans want a fair wage, right? We've got minimum wages and things like that. And so you've got a production plant. You got to pay your employees. That's a lot of overhead, right? Well, ship it overseas, have them make it in China, and we can sell it to you a whole lot cheaper. And
Right.
Americans like their cheap shit.
Yeah.
In fact, one of the biggest differences about the way, we're growing up now versus the way our grandparents grew up was that our grandparents lived to survive. They worked to survive. They planted the crops. They had to kill the meat. They had to process the meat. The work was to sustain themselves. Now we are working to buy a bunch of cheap shit we don't need.
Yeah.
And so it's real easy to see how that probably some politicians thought, hey, we can make great lives for us over here, and Americans can get cheap stuff and ship it overseas. Well, now we're dependent on these countries for everything.
Yes, we are.
And, you even look at these ultra-conservative channels who are, take like Daily Wire is a great instance. So Jeremy's Razors came out. They're trying to compete with Harry's Razors, who had a woke ad. And so the Daily Wire said, hey, buy your razors from us. We'll take your money, and we're not going to insult you. But they were making the razors in China. And this is a pro-America company, right? And a lot of people were pissed. And they said, hey, so I don't know what the razor, I don't remember how much it cost, say $20, right? And they said, if we had to source this from America, we would have to build a manufacturing plant, or we would have to pay X amount, and these razors would be $75, and it would be unaffordable, right? And so it's like, well, where are your, how pro-America are you really? So it's one of those things. You just can't compete with that. And I think Taiwan, especially with everything having computers now, and they, all these cars can be tracked nowadays. There's computers in all these cars. They can shut your car off remotely.
Oh yeah.
If they wanted to.
Oh yeah.
Which is terrifying.
That's why I'm glad I've got my 2005 Jeep. I can't touch it.
Somebody was telling me the other day, and I don't know if this is true. This is an ex-military dude, but they were saying that there's chips in those cars going back to '96, which would surprise me. But I haven't gone down that rabbit hole yet. But I do want to look into that. But let me tell you the story before I forget about it. We were talking about the government and how the government wants to get rid of you, right? And it's like, why doesn't the government just kill more people? We don't have to. So there's a a guy that he works with, ex-military black ops kind of guy, works from home now. Still works for the military, but not in the service. He works from home, and he goes, "I'm not good at this stuff." I'm like, but if you were a pain in the government's ass and they wanted to get rid of you, it would take me, who's not good at this, about 20 minutes to hack your firewall, put some child porn on there, and then catch you.
Really?
That's how they do it. You don't have to kill anybody, just because that's such a
Set them up.
That's such a societal. Nobody in society wants to hear an excuse about that, right? It's an easy thing to condemn somebody for, whether it's true or not. Open shut. We found it. Here it is. It's done. That's how you get rid of people.
This is why I'm glad I've got a couple of acres on a hill in West Fork, and I'm looking into getting myself a tiny house for me and my boy and my dog, and going up there. I know how to hunt, I know how to fish, I know how to grow stuff, and just shutting everybody out.
Well, not to freak you out, but I get that a lot. Hey, if shit ever hits the fan, you're in a great spot out there. You can do this and this and this. Yeah, until people come to take my shit. You're going to have pirate gangs going around, teaming up, going to take your chickens, going to take all your resources, your ammunition, your women. If shit really hits the fan, it's going to get nasty. It's not like you're just going to have all these people, especially a lot of these conservative companies that are selling all these, the resources like freeze-dried food and
The
all that
MREs.
stuff and whatever that is. They're making so much money on that stuff right now.
I've seen that. People talking about, oh yeah, I went and I bought this for like $100 and it's 3 months worth of food. And
yeah, so in the city, it'll be bad in the cities first. And that's when the gangs will start forming. They'll take all the resources, but then they'll start spreading out. And out and out and out. And so you better have a fucking militia and a bunch of good people. And what would happen is you would have bands of neighbors band together into their own militias to counter that kind of stuff. But like, people think it would be, weeks or months after the electricity went out before shit hit the fan. It would be days. It would be days.
Be quick.
Yeah. And, you don't have to drop a nuke on the United States to fuck everything up. All you need is an EMP. Hell, China got a fucking spy balloon across the whole country.
I saw that.
And I was like, what if that was an EMP or something? We just let this thing go. Now, I'm not in military briefings, so all I see is what's on the news. So I don't know what our reasons were. I hope the people in the Pentagon know more than I do. You would hope. But, just from a layman sitting here going, what the fuck are we letting that do across the country? But if you just had, just say with all these illegal immigrants coming over here, there's at least a few of them who have ill intent.
Yes, I agree.
Now, are a lot of them just coming over here for a better life? Absolutely. Are they doing it the right way? Not in my opinion. I think they need to come over legally, but I still believe in kindness, and taking care of people. I get it. They're here, but there's a lot of criminals coming over. And if there is somebody orchestrating this, what's to say they aren't setting stuff up at electric companies or setting bombs up on power plants and stuff?
The water companies, poisoning water supplies.
Sure. I mean, what fascinates me is people's lack of imagination, where you'll watch a movie where something like that'll happen, and it's like, oh, that would be so scary. But if you bring it up happening in real life, they say, oh, that could never happen. Why the fuck couldn't it happen? People are more evil than you can possibly imagine. And not even as far as you would think. It doesn't take much money or power to turn somebody completely. I've seen it happen. I've seen people get into just management roles and turn into assholes. Because now they got a little bit of power.
Yeah.
And I'm a little man, and now I got power over you, and I'm gonna, fucking micromanage and whatever. Just imagine that times a million. If you're in a government office and you have military secrets that you can leverage, you mind the power that these people have? They're like gods. It's nuts.
It's scary.
And it's easy to criticize, and I do criticize the government a lot because I think we're an evil, unwieldy beast that's run by unelected bureaucrats. But we have to do a lot of evil things to counter the things that other countries are doing. It's like the movie Sicario. Me and my dad just watched it the other night. It's so basically, the movie is about sending a hitman into Mexico to knock out a drug lord, because as the CIA, you can't have a bunch of competing people. It's too hard to manage. You only want to deal with one of them. So it's easier to manage if you only have one. So you take out the competitors, and then you're working directly with one. I mean, it's shit like that. Like it's well known that CIA was behind taking out the Ukrainian government leadership years ago when Poroshenko was the leader, and we helped install Zelensky. Is that right? Is that wrong? I don't know. I'm not privy to the intel that they have. None of us are. We're all just watching propaganda, state-run propaganda, basically.
We're laymen.
Fox News, CNN, that's all state-run propaganda. They are just whatever side, they're pulling the strings. It's like my buddy that worked, he worked psychological ops. He's like, the three keys are, when you're studying an enemy, who's angry at their management, who's pissed off in their situation, who's hungry, right? You find out what their motives are, and then you leverage those buttons. You push those buttons, and then you can manipulate them to gain intel, right? It's pretty deep shit. It's really scary.
Wow.
But are they doing it to protect us? I think there's a lot. I think probably the majority of people that go into the FBI and the CIA are patriots who just want to serve their country. But it only takes one or two crooked people in there.
That's right.
One or two guys.
One bad apple.
One. That just has all the intel and the mole, right? That gets in there and can fuck a whole lot of shit up. It's scary. I don't know. It's the kind of shit I'm just obsessed with right now, because I know what's going on, and there's nothing you can do about it, and it's kind of a waste of energy, frankly. But I can't shut it off. I can't just,
Well, you want to pray for the best, but prepare for the worst.
Yes. Yeah, but how much time do you spend preparing? It's like I said, we can have 3 months worth of food, but at the end of that 3 months, then what? It's my job to protect my family if shit goes wrong. So I want to know what's going on. I want to know as much as I can, but you also I don't trust the media, any side of the media.
I don't either. And that's why I don't watch the news. I keep weather alerts on my phone and local news, but I don't watch big time news because I figure it's not going to do me any good.
Well, it's an incentive model on ratings. I mean, they're getting paid by their advertisers, and so their advertisers are going to have agendas and motives. That's why I think the podcast is killing it right now, is because, at least right now, once you get to a certain level of podcast, the money's going to hit you, and then you're just as corruptible as the news is. But I think a lot of these smaller guys that are out there just trying to dig up their own news and not believing either side and just figuring out, hey, where's the truth? It's somewhere in the middle here. You know, but I think the faith has been broken in so many institutions at the same time, the medical institutions, the news, and it's sad because we don't know who to trust. You got Taiwan situation going on, you got Ukraine going on, you got the Middle East is a fucking hotbed right now. We're in a cultural civil war in America. Something's gonna happen.
Yeah.
You know, you've got two love or hate Trump. Somebody's tried to kill him twice. Like that is the level of intensity that we're at, and I want to have hope.
But it's hard to.
It is. It's scary because I've got a 14-year-old son. Is he gonna get drafted? Like, I am not pro-war. Anyone else's war. If somebody's coming over here and landing on our soil, that's different. But fighting wars halfway across the world and sending my son to die in them, not a fan.
Yeah.
Not a fan.
I've thought a lot. You mentioned your son. I've thought a lot about that with my boys. And the only thing that gives my heart a little relief is that my oldest son and my youngest son are both autistic. So they would not be subject to a draft.
Right.
You know, so but I think about my friends with sons that they go.
Yeah.
They would go.
Absolutely.
And it breaks my heart.
I didn't know either one of your sons were autistic. You know, my sister's autistic. Have you watched the podcast I did with her?
No.
Yeah, I put out last week. Yeah, I did a
I'll
podcast
have to look
with
at
her.
that.
Yeah, she was incredible. She did a really good job. But yeah, that's interesting. I'd like to do. I don't know. We've been going a bit, and I want to get to a couple other things. But I'd like to talk about that sometime, like what that was. Well, we can talk about it now. We've only been going about an hour. Unless you need to take a break. You need to pee or anything?
No, I'm
You
good.
What was that like raising? Well, like, so your oldest one's 32.
Mm-hmm.
And how old was he when you knew something was going on?
Okay, so he was like 5 years old, but back then, autism wasn't a word.
What year was he born?
He was born in
I'm not good at quick math.
89.
Okay. So he's almost, my sister was born in 88.
Yeah.
So this would have been early 90s
Yeah.
when he's 5.
Autism was not a word. He was very slow developmentally, but he was so smart.
Right.
And I will never forget, I had a newspaper, and my daughter had just turned 1. And Peyton and I were looking at the newspaper, and there was an advertisement from Harps in there, and it said a free birthday smash cake. And he said, "Mama, free cake, free cake." You know, and I looked at him and I was like, "You just read that." You know, so there were things that he was so smart at, but vocally, he wouldn't talk that much. He was very awkward physically.
Mm-hmm.
So we took him in. I took him to Schmeeding in Springdale. And they said, "Oh, we went through like 24 hours of testing. And they said he's got Asperger's syndrome." And
Just high functioning autism for people who don't know.
yeah, exactly. So we proceeded from there. My youngest son had pervasive developmental disorder,
Okay.
which meant he was just slow socially.
Right.
You know, he he is fully capable of taking care of himself and living on his own,
Sure.
you know. He will never be able to drive,
Right.
you know, and he doesn't want to,
Yeah.
which that's fine with me. But he does great. He works at Walmart and he earns a paycheck every week.
That's
he
awesome.
Does, you know, he does really, really.
Yeah.
He's their best employee on the cart crew. I mean, and I've had so many of those.
He's probably grateful to have a job. Like, wants to do a good job, and
He does.
Yeah.
He'll get out there and he'll put his little ear pods in,
Mhm.
and this kid, I call him linebacker big, you know, because those carts weigh 75 pounds apiece, and he'll push 25 of them at a time. You know, he's got legs on him just huge and arms just huge.
they got those machines though now too, don't they? The
He
cart
doesn't
pushing
like
it?
them.
He doesn't like them.
Doesn't like him. He'll push them.
Probably out there building some muscle.
So, you know, Matt's got his thing with his job, and then Peyton, he's just so smart. So smart. You could ask him anything about movies or, you know, who directed blah, blah, blah.
Hyper
and-
focused on details.
Yeah, you know, and it's things that he likes. And
Yeah,
he's
absolutely.
like, well, they do this, and, you know, it was this person, and blah, blah, blah. And he in fact texted me today, and he was like, you know, your favorite artist, Lainey Wilson, is putting out a new song, and, you know, and I was like, well, thank you for telling me that.
I'm also a huge Lainey Wilson fan.
I love Lainey.
I couldn't name one of her songs though.
I don't know why the girls are telling me good luck about being on your podcast.
You never know how it's gonna go.
But yeah,
I think we probably like Lainey Wilson for different reasons though, I'm guessing.
you like her big butt.
I mean, it's nice. It's nice to look at.
I've seen her in concert twice.
Have you really?
Yeah, when she was at the amp.
Yeah.
And I really like the attitude she puts forth, and she's really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Seems like a firecracker.
Yeah.
I don't listen to much music anymore.
Why not? You put your own music out.
Yeah, but you kind of need some input in order to inspire you a little bit. I don't know. It just, as the 90s wore on and it got tired and everybody's just ripping off of Kurt Cobain, and the record labels got bigger and bigger, and they were literally just hiring people that sounded like this band or that band, and the creativity was completely purged out of it, and it got so bloated and it was just trash. I think the early 90s was the last era of true great creativity, and then it just got raped by corporations. I mean, they were selling, I remember these, I'll never forget, you know, I'm like 12, 13 watching these interviews with all my favorite artists, and these interviewers would ask the guys in Soundgarden or Nirvana, you know, how did you guys come up with these, you know, the look of the grunge look, and, you know, you guys are wearing boots and flannels, and it's like, because we work in a lumber yard when we're not playing music. It's cold in Seattle. It's like, that's real, you know. They weren't wearing spandex and leopard print and all that bullshit that the 80s was. You know, it was like, these were just real guys putting out music, and then the record label just sucked everything. I mean, there's no doubt about why Kurt Cobain killed himself.
Yeah.
I think it was a number of things. I think he also realized he really wasn't that talented. He was a great songwriter, but he wasn't a good musician. He didn't have that great a voice, and I think no formal education, which that's never required in pop music. But, like, I think he probably thought, yeah, and he was, you asked about being famous earlier. he got too big too fast.
He did.
He went from
I
working,
agree.
lumber yards to being he was the face of music.
He went from, who was it? Dave Grohl? I saw an interview with, and they were talking about whenever the first album came out and it went gold or platinum or whatever, and they went out to try to find Kurt, and he was sleeping on a park bench.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, that said a lot.
Well, these guys, another thing people don't really realize about the Seattle scene, and a lot of those guys were, like, a lot of rock stars would get into drugs after they got famous. A lot of these guys were just white trash and were already addicted to drugs when they got famous.
Mm-hmm.
Guys like Lane Staley from Alice in Chains.
Oh, God.
He was a heroin addict before there was a record deal,
Mm-hmm.
and it killed him.
Yeah.
And they were struggling because they were poor and they had abusive home lives. But they were relatable, and you could hear it in the music. You could hear the pain. I've told Nicole this before. The best music I write comes from the deepest pain. Because how do I convey this? How? And you can do it in a song. You can channel it, and that's therapy. And then you can, and it might help somebody else, But Lord knows it didn't help a lot of those guys. Because, Scott Weiland ended up succumbing to it. He lasted a little longer than some of the other ones, but it's a sad thing. And fame terrifies me, because when you have all these eyes on you, especially, it changes people. People chase it. People want to be famous. I'll never understand why anybody would want that. I've never wanted fame.
See, and that sounds like me. I've always been a fan of, I call it flying under the radar.
Yeah. Would I love people to get my music out to more people? Yeah, that would be great if I could share that. Ideally, I would like to be like just a songwriter and just do my own demos. That way I have my versions, and then let somebody else get up and do that. Because I don't want to tour. I want to raise my boys. I'm a private person. I don't desire any of that. And I think people are corruptible. Like I said, I've seen it.
Absolutely.
And the richer you get, and the more attention you get, the more full of shit you get, and
Money
the more
talks.
you start buying into, oh, I'm great and I'm fantastic, and you lose that humility, and you stop becoming a person and you start becoming a god, and that's never a good thing.
Nope.
Never, ever, ever. It's like these politicians that run. If a real person ran for president, they would either be corrupted, or their family would be destroyed by it. It takes a special kind of sociopath to run for president of the United States.
Yeah.
And get to that point.
You're absolutely
The things
right.
you have to do to get there.
I heard something like that on
Which is
TV last night.
Did you? Do you
Yeah.
remember what it was?
I can't remember, but it was something along that path.
Yeah. And music to me, well, it's like anything. Once it becomes a job, like I did it for a long time. It's fun when you're doing it with your friends and you're playing in the garage. But then when you start, we toured some after high school, and not like tour bus kind of stuff. I mean, it was like a Toyota 4Runner and a U-Haul trailer behind it, driving to Little Rock. But, it was a grind. You're in these cities, you don't know the people, and it was, and then, at some point you got to say, hey, I either need to fucking get a real job, if you want to start a family and do that, which is what I did. And we did continue. Durham played until Walter was born, which is 12 years ago. And we did our first show last year at Durham Fest. But, music just kind of became a job. It's like the thing you have to do after you get off of your real job.
Right.
And it was like, I got my kids at home. I'm not going to see my kids tonight because I got to do band practice. And, it wasn't worth that. But now I'm playing music with my 12-year-old son.
That's awesome.
And that has been the first time I've I enjoyed playing music with the guys, getting ready for the show. Obviously, that was awesome. Both Drum Fests. But we were playing songs that we played a million times. We weren't doing new shit. But this is me and Walter are working up new material.
Wow.
And it's fun again. Just that creativity, and we've written so many songs. We'll say, hey, let's practice this, and this, and we can't even get to those songs because we'll write something new. Just jamming and tuning.
How cool is that?
Oh, it's been more magical than you can even express. Like at Durham Fest 2, we played a song. Me and Walter played a song with my dad. So we had 3 generations of Durham out there. Dad played bass, I played guitar and vocals, and Walter played drums. And it was just, and we got it on video, and that's one of those things that, that's why I'm so keen. That's part of the reason I wanted to really back off on the podcast was, he's into this right now. And if I don't do an album with him right now and he gets out of drums in a year and I miss that opportunity, I'm going to kick my ass forever.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's
well, yeah.
So yeah, once football's over, and it's not like we're strapped for songs. We just keep writing more. We've already got, I've got 6 albums written of material that I've had since Durham stopped playing. We never broke up, we never officially. We just had families, and so we've been doing that, and so we, still, people go their separate paths. But Durham Fest was awesome. It was fun. I love those guys, and I hope we'll continue to do them every year. One show a year would be fantastic for now, Mm-hmm. And once the kids are grown and gone, maybe we'll have a whole new second life, or we'll start doing stuff again together. But for right now, I got an opportunity to play with my son, and that's going to be fun.
That's what you need to do.
Oh, absolutely. But the thing that took me by surprise was how much we're writing. Like new stuff that's coming up.
The creativity that's just flowing.
Well, initially we were going to record the next Durham album that I had written. What was funny is the songs we were working up were the songs that I was writing when Julia was pregnant with him. So these songs are 12 years old. And so now me and him are jamming on them. But now we've written almost an entire album by ourselves. Just the two of us. Just back and forth, and he's really good. It's not like I'm just patronizing, like, oh yeah, good job, little buddy. Sometimes you tell a kid, good job, keep it up. When he started out, obviously he didn't really know what he was doing, but he kept practicing, and I was like, if you want to get really good, you can't just play when we're playing together. You got to play on your own. You got to practice. You got to do those things. And he did. He got obsessed with it. And every time I come home, he's in here just jamming and listening to something and trying to learn new drum beats and expand his knowledge and get better and learn new fills. And then he can apply it to the stuff we're doing.
That's awesome.
It is. It's magical. It
that
really
is awesome. And that's got to make you feel good, knowing that you have such an influence on your son like that.
I don't know how I feel about it. I'm so, you want to be able to, so for me, I think a lot of parents make the mistake of everything's a family, right? Your dad when the family's together, but if you have more than one kid, I don't think people spend enough individual time. It's like every day I'm like, I at least want to spend 30 minutes with each one of them individually. Outside of the family.
See, that sounds like me.
Yeah. And it's important. You have to do that. Well, now you got grandkids. You've got how many grandkids?
3.
And those are all your daughter's kids. Mm-hmm. And they're how old?
Autumn is 11, Aiden is 8, and Elliot is 6.
Awesome.
Yep. And I see them all once a week, and they all have grandma. They call me grandma. So they all have grandma time. And I love that. Autumn, she is the first one to come and jump in my arms. You're my best friend, Grandma. And I'm like, well, you're my best friend too.
That's so sweet.
And Elliot he likes cars, so we play cars. And then Aiden, he likes Legos. He gets that from my middle or my youngest son, and we build stuff with Legos. So, I do the same thing. You have to make that separation. They all have to feel special.
Absolutely.
They
Well,
all have to.
I think a lot of dads, especially in past generations, my grandpa's generation, for example, he showed discipline, but not love. And so you had a whole generation of dads whose dads were mean, and that's all they saw was the discipline, but they didn't show any love to the kids. And so I think we're in an era now. We've progressed in a lot of ways, but we've also regressed in some, and I think we've gone too far. I think we love our kids so much now where they're little fucking monsters, where there's not any discipline. And so it's like you went from abusive to now the kids are abusive to the parents because there is no fucking wall at all. There's no discipline. It's all about balance.
Yeah.
It's all about balance. They need to know where the fucking fence is, but they also need to be shown love.
Yeah. Exactly.
It's like a football coach. We got a coach on our team who's very loud and yells at the kids, and a lot of parents just do not like this guy. And that, it's 2024. You shouldn't be yelling at him like that. And I'm like, he's also the first one to praise these kids. He gives them more praise than any other coach. When they do something right, that's what I'm talking about. That's a great job, son. That's what I'm talking. Picks them up, pats them on the back. He's loud and yells, but he wants them to succeed.
Yeah.
I think, well, we don't even have to get in the whole war on masculinity, but I think there is a perception that if you yell at a kid, it's abuse or something.
I feel like it's, for lack of a better term, it's getting their attention.
Yeah. Especially with boys. Because there are times when I have got to get in their face. And this is not going to, just real. Yeah, running a podcast. I haven't aired this yet, but somebody will be talking. You'll have side conversations, and it's like, dude, shut the fuck up. It's nothing personal, and you know what? They don't get their feelings hurt.
Yeah.
Or pout, and they're just like, oh, yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just gotta fucking put the smack down.
You have to get their attention.
You have got to get their. That's a good way to phrase it. You got to get their attention, because boys want to know where the fences are. And they need to know. They got to be smacked a little hard. I'm not saying physically, but just like, you got to get their attention.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I've, even my boys, as gentle as they are, I have to get up in their face and I'm like, are you kidding me? You better stop this shit right now. And they're like, whoa, sorry, Mom. I'm like, all right.
Did they go to public school the whole time?
Yep.
What was their experience like?
So my oldest son, he did fine. And both of them graduated high school.
And they went where?
My oldest son went to Fayetteville schools.
Okay.
And then my youngest son went to Westport.
Okay.
So my youngest son had the worst experience because he had a teacher that wanted to put him on Ritalin.
Ooh, did he need it?
No.
Okay.
He did not. And I will never, ever, 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 ever forget Thanksgiving Day. Grandma and Grandpa came over to the house. I was cooking Thanksgiving dinner. We were watching the Macy's Thanksgiving Day
Oh,
parade.
yeah, we watched that, yeah.
Well, Matthew sat in the middle of the floor and he just started crying. Just big, heavy chest sobs.
Yeah.
And it just, I was freaking out. And his dad was like, that's it. No more pills. no more pills. And he went, he took that whole bottle of pills, poured them down the toilet, and flushed them. And then we had a conference with the teacher.
What year would this have been? Just for my own context here.
That would have been...
Or how old would he have been, roughly?
He would have been 6 years old.
Okay.
That's when I found out that schools got money for every pill that they gave a child during the day.
Is that true?
Yeah. So I was like, no more. No more. And he did fine without pills. We put him in occupational therapy. We put him in physical therapy. And he did just fine. You know, but they were doping him up. And they were getting paid by the pills that they gave him.
Well, here's something that's really fucked up if you want to get into this. Everybody wants to fix kids with pills now. And we got into this with Dr. I had a psychiatrist on not too long ago, Dr. Staley, and we talked a little bit about this. But everybody wants to fix things with pills, pharmaceutical companies. Why do you think marijuana and psychedelics are illegal when they're natural and helpful? The studies say that the best thing for PTSD are like psychedelics and mushrooms.
I was manager of one of the biggest CBD stores in Fayetteville here a few years back.
Mm-hmm.
And we had the first cannabis collective in Fayetteville.
Mm-hmm.
And my tent neighbor was someone that was involved with psychedelics. And I learned so much about how that helps people. You know, you just microdose it, and then it changes the chemistry in your brain.
Even hero dosing it can make you aware of how, like, your spot in the universe and make you feel part of a larger existence. Mm-hmm. So people who feel very alone and isolated, it helps connect them to a greater thing. But sadly, these corporations wanted that stuff out of the way, demonized it. I don't know if you've ever seen, what's it called? There's a movie about cannabis from like the 50s.
You
know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I know.
But it's like the dangers of cannabis, and and you have people like raping other people and jumping out of windows, and it's like, that's not what happens when you do cannabis at all. But they demonized it.
You know what? I will be honest with you, and I'll sit here in front of God and everyone. Whenever my kids' dad died, my daughter went through this very, very dark phase.
Can't imagine.
You know.
How old was she at the time?
14.
Oh my God. Wow.
She was 14. Her dad
Which is about the time you need a dad the most.
Yeah.
It's the most upheaval in your life. You're going through puberty, all that stuff.
She couldn't sleep. She couldn't eat. She started dressing in black and dyeing her hair black and just being really, really emo.
Goth or emo, yeah.
And I ain't no shame in my game. I smoke. I asked her one night, I said, you want to come in here and smoke with me? What? I said, I really think it would help you. I think it would help you be less tense.
Mm-hmm.
I think you would be able to sleep. I said, come in here and let's smoke. It worked.
I knew you were going with this. Yeah.
It worked.
Yeah.
You know. And then my youngest son, he has times where he gets really anxious. And he'll come in to me, Mom, can I hit your vape, or can I just smoke a little bit of something with you? And I'm like, sure.
Yeah.
You know, I always told them, you smoke at home. I'll smoke with you whenever you want. Do not go out and smoke with your little buddies, because if you get in trouble out there, I can't help you.
Right.
But if you're here at home, we can keep a damper on this.
Right.
You know, and it helped my kids.
It
Yeah.
helps a lot of people.
It helps me.
It also doesn't have the addictive properties that cigarettes, alcohol, and pharmaceuticals have.
Mhm.
So the pharmaceutical companies are monetarily incentivized to demonize this natural stuff because you can grow it at home
Yeah.
if you wanted to, right? But it's not legal. And so
Maybe I do.
you've got all these things that can help people that are being suppressed. And like, don't even get me started on the fucking vaccine and all that bullshit. But I think it's a truly evil empire. I mean, they have enough money to control news stations. But yeah, like the research I've been looking into, like veterans with PTSD and the help that they're getting off of like psilocybin and stuff like that is really incredible. Because these people are, could you imagine being sent halfway across the world, away from your home, away from your friends, and seeing your buddies being blown apart and having to kill somebody for some war you don't even really know the true purpose of, because no matter what they say on the media, it could be something totally different. And then coming back to normal life and just people saying, hey, how about them Razorbacks? When you've seen all that you've seen, and like, how do you reintegrate to society? But you're not allowed to have a plant that grows. It's nuts. It's evil.
It is.
It's absolutely. And even now, like, why is it much more? Why is it 4 times more expensive in Arkansas than it is in Oklahoma?
Oh, don't even get me started on that.
The fucking greed. Like, yeah, we've come a long way, but the perception of it, like in the 90s, the perception of being caught with a marijuana cigarette, you were outcast. You were demonized. You were just the filthiest trash. You know, and I grew up thinking that about it. It's like, oh my God, these scum. How dare they, you know?
People look at me, which side is it on? My pot leaf tattoo.
Well, you got a ribbon on that one. I didn't. Yeah, it's there. Yeah.
People look at me and they're like, why do you have a pot leaf on your neck? And I was like, why shouldn't I?
Well, I think the perception was that it was just a recreational thing, just so you could get high. But it helps lots of people.
You know, whenever I was a teenager.
Is that a vape water bottle?
It's a water bottle.
But it's like a straw?
Yeah.
Oh, it's just a straw. I thought you were vaping out of that thing.
I wish.
It's just a straw.
Yeah, it's just
So I'm just
a straw.
an idiot.
But, so whenever I was, and this was 100 years ago, yeah, I smoked pot for fun. You know, who didn't? 16 years old, riding around with my friends, you know, passing a joint. But then whenever I was diagnosed with cancer back in 2006, I couldn't eat.
Mm-hmm.
I was living off of chicken noodle soup and watermelon, and that was it. I couldn't hold anything down.
Yeah.
And
Was that because of the treatments or the cancer itself?
the treatments.
Yeah, so they're basically poisoning you.
Yeah. Radiation and
Yeah,
chemo.
yeah.
I did 33 rounds of radiation and 6 rounds of high intensity chemo, where they locked me in this room with a steel door this thick, shut me in there, and they talked to me through a speaker. But
While they're radiating you.
yep. So my husband brought me a joint. And he said, "Smoke this." And I was like, "Man, it's been a long time. I don't know."
Yeah.
And he was like, "Light her up." He said, "I'll smoke it with you."
Yeah.
And I was able to eat after that, and then we started growing our own. And that helped me get through all of those treatments. And I went into remission, and to this day, I'm still in remission.
Hell yeah, lady. That's
know,
awesome.
It
A lot of people don't pull through.
and that was 2006. So it was a hard thing to go through, but that's why I'm a fan of the plant.
Yeah.
You
Well, to me, if my kids were out driving, they're not old enough yet, but if I had a child that was out driving on a substance, would you rather him be smoking pot or drinking alcohol?
Smoking pot.
Because alcohol takes away your inhibitions. So you're speeding, you're reckless, you're swerving, whereas pot, if anything, mellows you down. If anything, you're more paranoid.
Mm-hmm.
You're going slower.
Mm-hmm.
You're being safer than you probably would normally.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's just such a common sense. Plus, it's natural, right? There's not all these cancers linked to it, like alcohol. Yet, I don't know how many billions of dollars we, as Americans, spend on booze
Oh God.
in a year, right? It's a huge market. And so now you have these competitors coming up. There's a monetary, always chase the money. Every single time you go, what's the motive here?
Dollar bills.
It's always money.
Dollar bills.
Always
Dollar bills.
money. But I think one of the great things about progress is especially the medical legalization of it. But which is also bullshit, because people are just going to give anybody, because it's such a dumb thing. Why is it illegal to begin with? Because it's a competitor to the things that they want to sell you, that are grown in a lab versus grown in the fucking dirt. You look at the Native Americans and some of the stuff that they were doing. They could see God. They were having these visions, and it was a powerful ritual. I mean, they didn't have school shootings on the plains of Oklahoma in the 1700s. You know what I mean? Like, there were warlike tribes. There was certainly that, but like, you didn't have the mental health epidemics that we had. You didn't have the mental health epidemics in the 90s.
No.
It wasn't until, I think Columbine was in 98. But like, I was the last generation that, most of us had guns in the car that were visible from the outside, and the doors were unlocked.
Yep. My kids' dad would talk about how he would go to school with his hunting rifles in the back window of his truck all the time. But we're talking about pot here. I have raised the hairs of so many big time religious people. They'll see that. Well, that's a marijuana leaf on your neck. Yep.
Clutch
sure is.
my pearls.
Yeah, it is. And they're like, well, you know, that's just not right. You're a mother and you're a grandmother. And I was like,
But where are they getting that? Even from a biblical standpoint, where in the Bible does it say?
they would talk about in the Bible Jesus going around anointing people with oil.
Mhm.
Guess what was in that oil?
You think it was CBD?
I think it was they talked about a five-fingered plant, and it was mixed with olive oil,
Mm-hmm.
and he would go around and he would anoint these people with oil, and it would take their pain away. See if I can find it here. But I would always bring this up. Oh, he did not. And I was like,
Well, what's your interpretation of the Jesus turning water into wine thing? Was that real wine or was that grape juice? Because there are certain denominations who say it was non-alcoholic.
I think it was probably grape juice and it just fermented.
So you don't think Jesus actually drank any wine?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
You know, yes, I do.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, because so many churches are completely against alcohol entirely, or any substance to put in your body for that matter. I'm not familiar with what you're talking about as far as the oil and the five-fingered plant. I'm not a scholar by any means. But I don't think that things like marijuana and psilocybin fuck up your body chemistry enough to kill yourself like these
No.
pharmaceuticals do. Like antidepressants and stuff. They change your chemistry so badly that sometimes the medicine, and they even say it on the TV when you say this medicine might cause suicidal tendencies.
Yeah. And I watch that and I'm like, why would you want to take that?
If you're
thing?
suicidal, then why would you take something that causes suicidal tendencies? Yeah, it's always, I don't know. But I think we're getting better. I think we're getting more progressive in that way. And the stigma is gone, I think. Even in I mean, this used to be as redneck of an area as you could get, but, you know.
I grew up here.
Yeah,
You did too.
yeah.
So.
And the
you
stigma
know.
is gone. But now the other problem is now people are cashing in on it. And it's like we were talking about, Oklahoma and Missouri are two of the most least restrictive. Texas too. But Arkansas is one of the most restrictive fucking states.
You know, I have to admit,
Or greedy, one, I'm not sure.
that's why I have not got my card.
You don't want to give money to the state. Yeah, fuck them.
You know, no. I know too many people I can get it from. You know, I'm not going to do that because we don't have the selection. We can't grow ourselves, you know, and I'm not going to pay that much damn money to give to the state of Arkansas and then have to renew that card every single year. Not going to do it.
Yeah, I don't. Well, see, I'm a libertarian. I don't think the government needs to be there for any purpose other than protecting borders and building roads. Why should the government tell you what plants you can grow?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like even opiates have really healing properties for people in pain. I don't know if you watch Game of Thrones, but like the milk of the poppy, you know, that they drink. You know, I get heroin is a pretty fucked up compound, but that's not its natural state either. You know, that's, I don't know how heroin's I don't claim to know. That's a completely different beast. But like the poppy plant in and of itself is really good for pain.
Yeah.
Whereas, and I don't know how I don't know anything about, I know very little about that plant and how that operates, but you look at stuff like like pharmaceutical opiates are very addictive.
Oh man.
And, you know, it's it's almost, even people for minor surgeries get addicted to that stuff. And there are people who kill themselves because they can't get it anymore, because it changes the chemistry in your brain so badly that your body needs it.
Yep.
And it's, I mean, I don't know. I've never heard anything about marijuana having those kind of addictive properties, or mushrooms. I know less about the poppy plant, but it's just wild to me that you would illegalize that stuff, but again, you're cutting out the competition, because it actually does help people, a natural resource versus something that they can make in a lab and get you addicted to. They make that shit addictive,
Yeah.
so you have to be on it for life.
Yes. My late husband, I will never, ever, ever forget. He had the cancer, but he also had diabetes. And he ended up getting gangrene in his foot.
Oh my God.
So they ended up taking one toe. And then they took 2 toes. And we were going in for him, the surgeon, to take toe number 3. And I was like, okay, this is, I'm watching this spread almost daily. How can we just beat it to the punch?
Yeah.
And he said, take half the foot. And I was like, okay, that's what we're going to do. And he said, well, I'm going to go ahead and write out his pain pill prescription now. Oxycodones.
Yep.
And he was like, I'll never forget. He giggled almost, and he was like, oh, you're going to get so addicted to these. Wrote him out a script for 120. So what I did was I took him home after surgery, and I had a friend that I knew had some good bud, and we made up some can butter, and he couldn't eat very much at that time. He was just so sick. So that's what he wanted, was toast, and I would spread that can butter on it, and that's what he wanted. So I was like, pills, pot butter, I'm gonna go with the pot butter.
But even so even take the pharmaceutical company out of it. If you are in pain, like for example, I was on a cane for almost 2 years before my back surgery in 2015. I was basically crippled. I couldn't walk. I had a disc that had degenerated so badly. And even trying to get surgery is all this red tape. It took me a year to get approved for the surgery. But if you work for a corporation, you got to get drug tested when you start. You get randomed when you do there, and you don't want to lose your job. So if you want to relieve the pain, you have to go to pharmaceuticals. Right? It's all set up.
It's like you're damned if you do,
exactly.
You're damned if you don't.
Right. And if you risk taking this natural plant illegally, you can lose your job. Mm-hmm. And then you can't support your family.
Mm-hmm. We were so lucky that Donnie wasn't under a pain management doctor at that time, because he would have lost everything.
Yeah.
So we kept it on the down low, and we would still smoke, and I had vapes around, which he couldn't handle that very good.
Yeah.
But we would, boy, he liked that can of butter on his toast.
Yeah. I didn't even know that existed.
Oh, yeah.
I hate inhaling things into my lungs. I just don't like that. And maybe that's because when I was singing at bars, the smoke would just... I was actually glad when they outlawed smoking inside of bars, just because by the end of the night, I felt like I'd smoked a fucking 10 packs of cigarettes without smoking one.
I bartended at Club West, so I know exactly.
Yeah, then you fucking know.
I know what you mean.
But even any kind of smoke in my lung, I just have a thing about it. I can't stand it.
Yeah.
And it was because of that. It was
Yeah.
just the smoky bars. You can see through the room
Yeah.
in those places. There's no
Yep.
ventilation,
Mm-mm.
you know.
Mm-mm.
And that was one of the few rules I was actually kind of like, because I'm a freedom first, but just go outside.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because there's
Yep. We had a side door to the side, and I would always go and prop that door open and tell my bouncer, keep an eye on that door. Leave it open though, because I was back there.
So I've only been in Club West a couple of times, but I heard stories about, my dad's, and even my grandpa had Club West stories. What's some of the most fucked up shit you saw at Club West as a bartender? How long did you do
I
that?
was there for 2 years.
Okay.
Somebody getting stabbed in the parking lot. I think the worst, I shouldn't say worst thing, but the last night we were open, we had a complete blowout. And I was back behind the bar tossing drinks.
So you were there up till it closed?
Yeah.
To the very end?
Yeah.
Okay, wow.
And this prissy little blonde girl comes in carrying a Louis Vuitton, and you could tell she did not belong there. And she walked up and, well, can I have I forget what it was she ordered. And I was like, no. She said, well, why not? And I said, show me some ID. Well, the guy at the front door said that I could come in. And he was just trying to get a piece of ass,
Yes.
And she was cute,
Sure.
And I was like, nope. I said, I'm not serving you. You're going to have to go somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
Well, then somebody comes running up to the bar. Cops are here. Cops are here. They knew she was in there. And I was like, I didn't serve her. I told her to go. And I grabbed my bouncer and I was like, are you fucking kidding me?
Was he the one that let her in?
He was the one that let her in.
Over some pussy.
Mm-hmm. So I was like, are you fucking kidding me? All of us could be going to jail right now.
Yeah.
And, well, you didn't serve her, did you? Hell no, I didn't serve her because she was carrying a Louis Vuitton and looked about 12 years old. She was here in Club West. She didn't belong here.
Yeah,
But-
that's not your Club West clientele.
No. But that was, I didn't really see anything too out of line. Everything that was too out of line went across the street to the 62 Event Center.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Which,
I'm ashamed to say that I'd been in all, but I hated that scene. I only went with some buddies, and honestly, it was very disgusting. That whole scene. That's what made me want to get, settle down and get married and have a family. Was that kind of place. Was so empty and vapid.
yeah.
And, everybody's in there. All these dudes are just in there trying to score. All these girls look like they're trying to get fucked. And it was just gross. You just felt disgusting being in there.
So, Tony C. and John Justice, who owned Club West, and then Montez. What was his first name? Ray Montez. I called them the Cornbread Mafia because, they owned the trashiest...
Strip clubs and the...
Yeah. They owned the trashiest nightclubs around.
Yeah.
And they would all come and sit at my bar, when it was quiet and, they would all talk about, well, when are you going to come work for me? I was like, not going to happen. Not going to, you don't have enough money to pay for me. And Tony C was like, I bet I have enough money. And I was like, no, probably not. I see what goes into your club over there. No, thank you. And then Ray was...
Don't get us killed, Sheila.
Ray was like, he would call me Tequila Sheila.
I like to have those guys on. I mean, they probably couldn't talk about much on a podcast.
Ray would.
Would he?
Yeah, he would. He's actually my neighbor. You want him on? I can get him on here
Out in
for
West
you.
Fork? Oh, I'd love to talk to that dude.
I mean, he has seen
He's a wild man, yeah.
lot.
If you lived around here long enough, you know those names.
Yep.
You definitely know those names. Cornbread. Where'd the cornbread come from?
Just
'Cause they were
south, being in the
Southwest,
south,
yeah, yeah.
And so I would that's what I call them, my cornbread mafia.
That's
and
fun.
they were, every time Ray sees me, there's my Tequila Sheila.
Was that just because it rhymed, or did you have an experience with tequila?
No, it's because it rhymed.
Okay. I know there was a story you wanted to share.
No, he would like for there to have been a story, but
Okay.
no.
They say tequila's one of the best liquors for you because it doesn't convert to sugar in the same way or something.
Mm-hmm.
But there ain't no worse puke than tequila puke. And if you've had one of those happen, which I did when I was very young, I haven't touched it. It's one of those hard... I always have to know where the fence is, And I found the tequila fence when I was 16, and I've stayed well away from that fence ever since. I can't even smell it.
I got to have my salt and lime. Salt and lime, or I can't touch it. And it has to be very, very cold.
I've got a bottle of tequila in there that my grandfather had since like the 70s.
Ooh.
That he got. It's got a worm in the bottle of it. It's that
It's mezcal then.
Well, I don't know that it's tequila, but it's got a worm in it. So I don't know. We'll look at it after the pod. You might be able to educate me.
I thought mezcal was the only one that had worms in it.
Hold on. I'll get it. Oh, it is mezcal.
I thought so.
Oh, you're right.
Yeah, mezcal. Yeah. See, mezcal is going to be the only one that has worms in it.
So what exactly... Let's see if I can get this in front of the camera here.
Yep.
So mezcal, and so you can see the worms on the back side here. There's that little grubby sucker.
Okay.
So what is the difference between mezcal and tequila?
Not much, except for the worm. And they say if you eat the worm, it has hallucinogenic properties.
I have heard that as well.
But I have never been brave enough to try it.
Yeah, I'll probably keep this little fella. There's 2 worms in there.
Mm-hmm.
So this is from what plant is...
Agave.
It is the agave plant.
Mm-hmm.
Both tequila and mezcal?
Yes.
Okay. But the worm goes in the mezcal.
Right.
There's also like worm chunks in here. The smell of it makes me just... I can't even... And he had this bottle, I remember it sitting up on his refrigerator it was out on the counter. Just for years and years and years and years. And then after he passed, it was one of those things, I was like, I'll just take this home with me. But just a neat bottle. He had got it in Mexico. Everything on here is
it's
in
authentic.
Spanish.
Oh, yeah.
It's a neat little piece of history. He was a world traveler. He went to Africa. He used to go camp in yurts, and they would hike miles in the snow to go camp in a damn yurt. And I got invited to go. I was like, that's not my idea of fun. I don't know. I grew up in a weird. So my mom's family was like uneducated, redneck, and my dad's family were like, they were both doctors and very liberal, and so they both were great people. They had a lot of value, but
You
they
had
were
the
both
best of both
Yeah, I
worlds.
really felt like I was able to discard the things from both sides I didn't like, but keep the cool shit from both. But like my grandfather on my mom's side, my grandpa Don, is one of the most charming. Just the dude's stories were just amazing. And I remember being little and hearing him tell those stories, and then every year that deer would get bigger and bigger, that rattlesnake would get, and he just told it in such a great way. My grandma, my dad's mom, she was a herpetologist. I mean, she was a reptile doctor.
Oh, wow.
And so she had, at one point she did her doctorate like dissertation on the hognose snake and like breeding habits and stuff. So she actually had ads in the Star Shopper, like paying people 5 cents or however much it was to bring her these hognose snakes. So she had hundreds of them in the house at one time.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and that was hers. That picture of the hognose snake. The hognose snake is almost completely extinct around here, and I'm pretty sure it's because of that experiment that she did. She got them. I don't know if she released them all in the same damn place or what, but you don't see it. Probably not, but it's funny to think about it. But it was just, he was a hunter and, loved to hunt and fish, and just a good old boy that grew up out in the hills of Elkins, and just,
Oh wow.
hmm but just as conservative as you could be, and she was as progressive and liberal as you could be. But I loved them both dearly. Those two could never have been married to each other, but I found such value in both of them. She was into science fiction and fantasy and just theoretics, and we could just talk about. She got me into Godzilla when I was a kid and reptiles, and she used to have, like, you'd open the freezer. Her freezer in her house she'd have bags with just dead snakes and stuff in it.
Oh wow.
That she found interesting. She had jars and formaldehyde of all these. Over the years, the formaldehyde ended up leaking out, and we had to throw it all away. But she's just an interesting lady. But it was just, that's why I've always seen the value in both sides of politics, because they both had really good points on different things, and I picked a little here, picked a little there, and like, I mean, you can see all the shit around the room. Like, I'm a big nerd.
See, you sound like me.
But like, I dress like a redneck, but I'm really a nerd at heart. Doesn't mean I don't like shooting guns and, drinking beer and all that stuff. And I love hanging out with rednecks because that's one of the worlds I grew up with. But I can also sit and talk for hours about just Star Wars lore. It's there, and that's why it bothers me so much, the political climate we're in. It's like there's so much we can find in common if we eliminate. And it's like Trump and Kamala don't give a fuck about us. They're trying to do,
Thank you.
And now,
thank you.
Now, I am going to vote for Trump, but I don't understand why. And I have had people who will not come on the show. They've told me, I won't come on your show because you're associated with you, because you support Trump. And that hurts a little bit. It's like, man, you won't even talk to me because of that. And I'd never experienced, and maybe that's white privilege. Like, really. Because I've always kind of scoffed at white privilege, right? But then it's like, well, I really honestly have never experienced stereotypes. But it's like, I have had a couple of guests that say, I won't come on your show because you're voting for Trump. It's like, okay, well, that's unfortunate, because I think we could have had a great conversation. We wouldn't even have to talk about that. But
The way I look at it, Donald Trump doesn't know who I am. Kamala Harris doesn't know who I am.
no.
I'm like you. I'm a geek. I'm going to go through and I'm going to study all of them.
Yeah.
Not just them, but the independents. And I probably won't make up my mind until the day I go vote. But I'm going to do my research and see who I like. There are things I like about both of Kamala and Donald Trump. There are things I like about both of them. there are things I dislike
Sure.
about both of them.
I understand it.
You know,
That goddamn vaccine that Trump put, I tell you what, I've been accused of being a Trump worshiper. I am not. I think that vaccine that he pushed through, what did he call it? Warp speed. It was the fucking worst thing anybody ever did as a president in history. And I think he did it out of ego. Just pushed forward this thing that he didn't know or understand just to take credit for it. I really hate that about him. He tried to come out and say video games were causing fucking school shootings one time. I'm like, dude, that is so out of touch. Like, I've got plenty of criticisms for Trump.
yeah.
But also, I saw Kamala's ad recently, and she's like, you know what I ask people when I see him? Are you okay? Like, bitch, you don't fucking care about me.
Where has she been the past 4 years?
No,
You know?
she's been hiding. But it doesn't matter. My whole thing is, I believe that the powers that be, this is the industrial tech complex. These are the Googles, the BlackRocks, the Vanguards, the banks, and the war machine, who makes all the war contracts. Those are the triarchy, and they pull the strings of both parties. So to them, it doesn't matter. As long as you toe their line, it's like a George Bush, or they don't care who wins the primary on either side, Republican or Democrat. As long as you do their bidding, they don't care. They'll let the people choose who they put forward for you, right? Like, these are your choices. We've controlled the choices you have, and so now you get to choose. Whereas Trump throws a wrench into that, and that is chaos to it. And that's why I like Trump, because we need something to fucking change. So this is the whole bull in the china shop thing. I'd rather tear it down than continue going down this path.
I
because
agree.
we as people are getting fucked. Does Trump care about me? No. Does he have a massive ego and wants to be a god? Maybe. I don't think he's going to destroy democracy. I don't believe for a second he's going to declare himself a dictator. There's no fucking way that would be allowed. I don't think the military would allow that for a second. So when they say the end of democracy stuff, I don't believe any of that. But, you know, like my buddy Jason Green was out last night. We just hung out for 2 hours, didn't turn the camera on. It was so nice. And he was like, you know, I was like, he said something about voting for Kamala. And I was like, dude, I don't get it. And he was like, he looked at me and he goes, I don't get it. And I was like, then we talked about something else for 2 hours. And that was it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Voting for different people. And neither of us, we both kind of rolled each other's eyes at each other. Like, I don't know why you're doing that. He didn't know why I'm doing it. And then we talked and just had a fucking heart to heart. It was beautiful.
Yep.
You know? And that's what we're doing right now. We're talking. We'd never even met before. Tonight. Like, literally turned the cameras on within like 5 minutes of you getting here.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought we had a great talk. I think we could have got a lot longer, and we'll do it again.
I'd love that.
I want to hear more about your sons.
I would love that.
I would like you to listen to my sister's podcast when you get a chance.
I will. I will.
Because I want to hear, like, from you about if you notice any similarities between, like, her mannerisms and your sons and stuff.
Yes, absolutely.
Because they're roughly the same age, too.
You know, and
Because she's 35. She's about to turn 36. So she's...
that would be an interesting dynamic because, you know, if you look statistically speaking, more young men have autism than women.
Yeah. I didn't know. I don't know the stats, but so I've definitely noticed that.
Yeah.
And I don't know.
So that I'll listen to that.
Listen to that, and let's have you on again when there's time. Might be a month or two, but we'll definitely reconvene.
Right on.
Awesome, lady. Thank you so much for coming on. First guest,
My
season
pleasure.
2,
Woohoo!
episode 51. Thanks, Sheila.
You're welcome. You know,
Tequila,
it.
Sheila.
I heard it from Nicole.
Oh, I don't know if I want to hear this or not.
I can't believe he stole another one of my people.
Hey, that's what this is all about, though.
I told her, I said, caring is sharing, Nicole.
No,
Now,
she
come
had
on.
Stillwell on, and I thought it was great. You know, she's exposing her audience to my world, and I'm exposing my audience to her world, and we're on different sides of the aisle. And that's beautiful.
I told her,
She
I
can
said,
steal all of my guests she wants.
this is a family affair.
Mm-hmm.
So, thank
It really
you for
is.
having
That's
me
one of the
on.
most beautiful things about it, is that we are connecting people.
Yeah.
And I've met people through. I met you. I wouldn't have met otherwise, you know. And I think it's beautiful. People loving
Me
people.
too.
That's awesome. All right,
Right
thanks
on,
for
bro.
listening, people.
Thanks.
You want to finish that bottle of mezcal before you leave?
No, thank you.